Humanity sets the agenda.
6 minutes past 11, you are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Mari Mukonda. Perhaps you can remember quite vividly the palpable excitement which you had started your current job or career. This was going to be it. It was going to be the career of your dreams. It was going to be the job that you've been waiting for, the job that launched your career into the stratosphere. Every day looked brimming with opportunity and promise. You looked forward to going there every day. You looked forward to meeting new challenges along the way. And then fast forward a year or two, and you find yourself off that high. Perhaps you notice yourself complaining about things a lot more lately, and maybe the complaints even sound similar to those you made at your last job, your previous job. Now, what happens when your career hits a brick wall? Let's find out with the Executive Leadership Coach Clive Kaplin. Good morning, Clive, and thank you for joining me once again. Good morning, Clive. All right, I think we've lost Clive there. We'll try to reestablish connection with Clive. And if you have any comments or questions in the moment, you can leave them in the comment section. Let's try once again. Good morning, Clive.
Hello.
Hi, there we go. I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah.
All right, it's a pleasure. Now, from the scenario that I just mentioned earlier, what has happened in a situation like that? You were excited for the new career. You started off the year well with the new career, and a few months down the line, or maybe a few years down the line, it's not something that you enjoy doing anymore.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I think a lot of people do reach this point in their careers at some point or the other. But there are a number of reasons for it. And I'm just going to go through a couple of them. Firstly,
Yes.
The first thing that tends to happen when one reaches that point, one's quicker to say, well, I need to leave and go and find another job. Okay, but there are a few things that one needs to consider, in my view, before one makes that decision.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing, the reason why it's happening is for you is you might be underskilled. In other words, you don't have enough skill to actually progress in the arena that you're operating in. The second reason is you might be overskilled. In other words, you're in a situation where you've got much more skill and it's not been actualized in your current position. And then there might be something that they're not telling you, like in your job, which is creating frustration. And that might be, you're a difficult team member, or you're missing critical pointers like meeting deadlines, and the like, or being maybe too argumentative. And then there's some personal issues that also might come into it. The one being the lack of confidence, which is sometimes happen. Another one is a fear of failure, where one's not actually stepping up when one is being called out. And then finally, and I think this is more relevant also today than ever before, is burnout, when one actually feels what you're describing, hitting a wall, which is really something that's happened due to because you're just actually burnt out. And this one I found particularly interesting because I did a survey a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn, which is on the surveys, a number of people answers give you a good idea. And the question was, have you burnt out in the last 18 months once, more than twice, or never? So 70% of people came back and said they'd burnt out more than twice, which is a startling statistic. So it's something that what I'm saying is that it needs to be considered. So when it comes would you like me to elaborate a little bit more on each of these?
Yes, please.
Okay, so underskilled is really where you on a situation where you actually need more education. You need more, you need to do another sort of course of sort. Okay, and this is something that needs to be quite, and this is often what people do when they hit a brick wall. They feel that they need to go and get another qualification, another degree. in my view, this is not necessarily the right way of doing it. One must be very, very cautious. The very popular one is with people who, have some undergraduate degrees to go and do an MBA. Okay, and unfortunately, with the cost relative to the amount that you get from it, it's not always relevant. So one needs to be, again, quite cautious. If one's going to do some sort of upskilling, one needs to be sure that's relevant to the work that you're doing. Okay, you don't want to go and do an MBA and then do a dissertation, on something completely different to which you can actually apply in the workplace. And this happens all too often, just incidentally. Also, what some people do is they go on and do master's degrees in finance or master's degrees in economics. If they can't use it in the workplace, it's going to do them no good. And while they're studying, just incidentally, they fall even further behind the curve. Okay, so you can't be in the workplace 50% and then 50% in, worrying about your studies. Okay, you are going to fall behind because people, who are in the workplace are going to surge ahead of you under those circumstances, and you'll never catch up. Overskilled is another probably a more frustrating one, is when you have a qualification, professional qualification, like a CA, for instance. Okay, and you're just not getting yourself. You're not moving forward, and you know that you belong, at the next level, but it's just not happening. And this is typically, you see people that are you are more skilled at, and they're getting promoted, and you're wondering yourself, what's happening there. In this situation, there's something going on more around the development within the context of the organization. In other words, to put it simply, there are two domains in the corporate area. You've got the executive domain and the manager staff domain. And what happens with people who are overskilled is they hit the ceiling in the manager domain quite quickly. And again, I'm going to refer back to CAs because it applies to them, because it applies to them quite often. And to actually jump the gap from manager to executive is in fact a quantum leap. And I alluded to it in the last time I discussed it which had something to do with toxic, the toxic workplace. But the manager space is much more of a political space, the gameplay space, than the executive space is much more of a political space and a gameplay space than the manager space. And it requires a different kind of mindset, and it requires a different approach, most of which is very subtle. And what I think it's, the typical textbook answer is that executives are strategic and managers are sort of more day to day. In fact, there are two other very interesting reasons why this could be happening. Is that the first reason is that there's a certain type of personality who naturally bubbles up into the executive space. So I call them me type people. Some people call them narcissists. Some even call them corporate psychopaths, and we've had a few around in our not too distant past. A surprising number, in fact. And the other reason is that the ethos in the executive space is very much like I come first, the company comes second to the degree that it suits my options and bonus, and everything is a commodity for me to use and dispose of as I wish, including the people. Now, the manager space is very different. In the manager space, it's really the people come first, the company comes second, and I fit in somewhere behind that, not because I see myself as anything lesser, but I have a more value-based, principle-based leadership style. And it's quite an allegation I'm making here, is that the executive space seems to lack the sort of the human side of interaction. And I'm afraid it's more endemic, more pandemic than is first thought, and often is one of the reasons why people can't break through to the executive level. And that's the kind of work I specialize in, incidentally. That's the kind of executive coaching that I do. And then moving to some of the other things that might be happening why people aren't moving forward and experience frustration is that if you are going to be a difficult team member, then be argumentative and continuously, challenge the boss, those kind of things. Don't expect it to work for you, it won't. Okay. And doing some other silly things like going over your boss's head or talking over your boss in meetings is not clever. especially if it's a narcissist type personality. They will deliberately crush you and marginalize you and move out the way. The other thing is, you might be in a situation where you are missing critical parts of what's required in the job. So if you're in a situation where you need to meet deadlines and you're not doing that, but you need to know that that's not going to work for you. It's not going to work for you in this company. It's not going to work for you in another company. And when I come across those things, the first question I ask is, I don't think the person is actually matched to this kind of work. They're trying to do something which they're actually not. Actually, the psychometric makeup just doesn't allow them to respond appropriately. And that really probably means a career change or a job change. And then the personal issues around lack of confidence and fear of failure. This is really where people just don't step up. They tend to play small. And issues like this are very important to deal with. And the best way of doing it is to find a life coach, in my view. I don't think it's as deep as going to a psychologist. I'd much prefer that someone finds sort of a life coach who can help them just really understand, some of these issues in the context of the workplace, so that they can progress more in their lives. And also, if I meet people like this, I encourage them to do some work on themselves or find some sort of self-actualization course that they can do to sort of understand themselves a bit better.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'd like us to discuss what we can do, to move forward when we've hit a brick wall in our careers. Please stay on the line.
Sponsor a winter pack today for just 600 Rand. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243.
For a long time, we've lived in a centralized world where institutions held the all-important data and confirmed all transactions. Those times are over. Welcome to Libertas Group, a blockchain developing company boasting an ecosystem that continually redefines the way we do business. Our blockchain is decentralized, making it immune to hacking or alteration, putting the power back in your hands with no middleman so you can focus on the growth of your business. Libertas, the simplest investment choice you'll make.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Your act of love gives hope. Islamic Relief supports orphans and vulnerable children in 28 countries with food, education, and medical care. There are more than 150 million orphans in the world. You can give hope to one. Sponsor an orphan today. Go to www.islamic-relief.org.za.
It's a new beginning. It's a new era. Salam Media, humanitarian journalism.
11:21. You are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Mariam Kwanda. Underskilled, overskilled, fear of failure, a lack of confidence, burnout, personal issues, and things that they don't tell you about your behavior are only some of the reasons why you would hit a brick wall in your career. And that is what we are talking about today. If you have any questions for our guest, Clive Kaplin, who is an executive leadership coach, you can leave them in the comments section. And also you can share with us your comments. Clive, thank you for staying with us. Now, what can we do when we hit a brick wall in our careers, especially and during this time of the year, and looking forward to new beginnings next year?
Yeah, I think one thing I think is important, if one can, is to take a step back and sort of ask oneself this very important question: what is the top of the game? Where ultimately do I see myself? Where would I like to land at? So if you are in corporate, okay, that would be in the C-suite executive space. When I say suite, I'm talking about C-suite are sort of basically 4 channels. There's Chief Executive Officer, Chief Operations Officer, Chief Technical Officer, and Chief Marketing Officer. There are others, but I'm just going to stick with those 4. And what's important is to firstly define for oneself in which channel one's reporting into. And ultimately, if one decides on that side, one can then decide how one needs to upskill oneself, because the fastest way up the corporate ladder is to take a boss's job. Okay, any other way is a detour. So if you move to another department, or you leave and go to another job, it's just going to be time wasted building new relationships, etc. So when I say take your boss's job, I don't mean, sabotage and taking out the picture. I'm just ultimately positioning yourself as second in charge to that person, so you can get to understand what's going on in their domain and the work that challenges they have available every day. So I think that, the other thing is and ultimately the two conclusions you might come out of this one, or let's say 3. The first one is to stay. Okay, the second one is that you actually are doing something that's completely not aligned with your passions and your principles and values. Okay, and this happens quite often. In fact, I call this the open jail door concept, where people who are professionally qualified feel they need to get to the top of the game. If they're a CA, they need to be the CFO. But meanwhile, they want to go and make baby clothes. Okay, that's really what they're passionate about. And they'll say, what I hear is, no, when I become a CFO, then I'll go make baby clothes. I think that's outrageous, and I encourage them to find a way of getting into making baby clothes as quick as possible. They'll never lose their skill set. That'll always go with them. So that's the one thing. The other thing is actually, the last one is to actually go, leave and get another job. And probably this is probably the most common reaction, as I mentioned previously. But again, one needs to be cautious in how one goes about this. And the first thing is to never leave your job until you found another position. Okay, because one of the things about getting into another job is they don't like to see gaps in your CV. Like I haven't been working for 3 months because I haven't found a job. Okay, and the other thing is there's a big question always around employment is why did you leave your current job? So you don't want to leave that question unanswered, or sounding that it doesn't really sound quite acceptable, and leave the interview like guessing what went on. Ideally, you want to be saying, I'm currently employed. Okay, I've been approached by someone else to a job. I've been headhunted. That's your best opportunity. And in order to create this, incidentally, LinkedIn has become a very powerful source of doing just that. And if you looked at LinkedIn, really actually is LinkedIn is your page, your profile is your personal website. Okay, and then the other part of it is actually driving traffic to the website, which is another skill completely. But the idea is that you get people to come and look for you. And some of the things that are important in that is you need to understand what your unique value proposition is. And then what is unique about your functionality that you're doing at the moment that is going to be valuable to another employer? And usually that relates to your current job title, and it also relates to the industry you're operating in, because that's where your experience is. And then you can use LinkedIn to actually connect with people in those industries, in those jobs, and so put yourself out there and hopefully get recognized. So those I believe are the sort of the major sort of ways of dealing with the situation. I think also, if I can just say something else, if you can't trust this, I need to say, but it's also best to approach your boss if you can, if you have the relationship, and ask them, whether they can give you some meaningful feedback. Okay, because often the managers are unwilling to do this for various reasons. And if you confront them up front, maybe you'll get the answer you're looking for. You just don't fit in on the team, or you never meet a deadline. And we can't give you anything more responsible, something of that order. So you can resolve that for yourself quite quickly.
And also earlier you mentioned about being underskilled, and one would go and do an MBA, for example. Now, what are other ways that one can upskill or get a little bit more skilled to suit their
Yeah, so you're asking the right person here, because I believe that coaching is very, very powerful intervention, especially if you're looking, to shift your career to the next level. And using a person who's completely objective, who's got no hidden agenda, okay, like anybody else, whether it be a family member, a mentor in the company that you're dealing with, okay, someone who can give you, solid, straightforward feedback, and also guide you on what the next steps are for yourself, I think is probably the most effective way, even to the degree of what to see going forward. Okay, I think it's a very valuable. So that's my view. When I look back on my career, I wish I had the privilege of working with a coach. It's very, very, very useful. So I believe that. Other than that, of course, one can play around on the internet and see if you can find something that likes you. But I'm also thinking that we're going into a world which is going to be so different. They talk about the new normal. In my view, there's going to be nothing normal about the new. So jobs that exist today are not going to be around in 2 or 3 years' time even. That's how quickly that we're moving towards the space. And maybe one should be looking to upskill oneself in a digital space, or upskill oneself as far as something now that's very prominent in business is called ESG, which stands for environmental, social, and governance, which is a new presentation, a new paradigm in business, and upskill oneself in those areas. And one interesting thing about those is that everyone is on a learning curve in these areas. So there's no real experts as yet, and you can always find a place to play. And there's a lot of free information on YouTube and on the internet that can help you doing this. In my view, one should be upskilling oneself on how to use the internet far more effectively, how to promote yourself, and probably even a product or an idea on the internet is a fantastic skill to have. And certainly in that space, the new knowledge, the new barrier to entry is not money as it used to be. It's knowledge. The new capital. The new capital is knowledge. The barrier to entry is the time that it takes to get this knowledge, which you have to do yourself through self-education. So the things are changing in a very interesting way. And formal education is not actually helping along the way, often because formal education itself becomes outdated by the time they put it into print. So some ideas around that issue.
Yeah, that is so true, especially when it comes to formal education. It's almost like we spend all those years in school for nothing, because you still have to go out into the real world and study something that is relevant now. And like you said, with the digital the new normal, everything going digital, and our kids now learning coding, etc. We have to kind of keep up with the times and learn what will help us now and in a couple of more years to come. Thank you so much for your time once again, Clive, and for the
Pleasure.
information.
And thank you.
Thank you. Have a
All the
fantastic day.
best. Same to you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Clive Kaplin, an executive leadership coach, taking us through what you can do when your career hits a brick wall. And first of all, don't think of leaving your job just yet. Look at the things that you can do to improve yourself first. Improve yourself, improve your skills before you decide to leave your job. And if you find that it's not working out for you, then you can decide to leave. But also, don't just leave your job before finding something else. Otherwise, you're going to be part of that percentage of unemployed people. And we already know the percentage, how high it is, the unemployment rate in South Africa, and you do not want to be contributing to that. The 350 Rand social grant is nothing. So, yeah, think about it. Anyway, it is 11:32. You are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media. Stay with us. We will be right back.